Hello Factorio people, welcome back to the broadcast from Krastorio. In this, a post-Megabase world. We're still going, still lots to do. The new target is of course 5,400 science per minute, a purple belt, a Krastorio 2 purple belt. If you want to do the old like, comment, subscribe, so that we can get on with it, that would be great. Got my cup of tea here ready to go, so let's dive right into it, shall we? Okay, here's the base as it stands. Pretty normal stuff. Megabase status, modest. A few ups and downs. Mostly we're scaled for exactly 1,000 science cards per minute, so whenever a mall train requests a new fresh load of something, like energy control units for example, or lithium sulfur batteries, to carry on building up stuff in the mall, in the hub, that can create a bit of a problem, a bit of a backlog for a bit while things catch up. We're not very overscaled production-wise for the cards. We're pretty much on the cusp. But last 10 hours, 872. So, you know, an hour, almost there. The pollution is starting to become a problem. And we'll look at that more later. But what we need to do now is we need to scale. We need to scale quite severely. If we want 5,400 cards per minute, we need a lot of stuff. And it gets to the point where bringing it all in on trains is basically impossible. You really need to abuse Krastorio 2's matter mechanic, whereby you can turn things into matter, and then turn that matter, which acts as a fluid, into things. So I had a lot of a play, and came up with some stuff. Oh, I created 1 million optimization tech cards at 117 hours. This is a matter plant, as you've probably seen before, and I have spoken about matter before, but this is the actual episode about matter, I suppose. Your throughput is just so much higher when you do it like this. Is this? Am I in a construction zone? No, not really. Alright, this was a bad idea. Yeah, let's just demolish one, it's fine. You can turn a whole bunch of resources into matter for free, barring obscene energy costs, which we'll get to. And everything's sort of roughly scaled to be worth the same amount. So, you're like, oh, this isn't quite going to work because of the beacons and stuff. Basically, everything is roughly the same. If something gives you more matter per minute, it's because it costs more to get in the first place. So, uranium-238, 10 uranium-238 gives you 47.1 matter. But obviously getting that 238 is a lot harder. 10 wood is only 2 matter, 10 iron ore is 5 matter. So basically, in the end game, your mining outposts go from this into a train, this to be more precise, into something like this. And then that matter, 1,000 matter can turn into 1 matter cube in a matter assembler. You can't do that on site, or at least it's harder to do that on site because that needs something called a matter stabilizer, which we only produce for science currently. So this design takes in just about 8 belts of the raw resource. 7.778. And then I use some side loading here. So rather than balance all of these belts into a 8 output balancer, I just have 7 lines that can definitely output a full belt, and then 1 extra spare line to side load belts that are empty. So if I press debug mode here and turn on transport line gaps, you can see here, sorry these miners are so loud, you can see that the middle ones just naturally output a full line of ore anyway, but these short ones here, they have gaps. So then when you side load, so rather than just balancing that, you just side load with the belts to fill the gaps, run off the excess to the next one that needs it. I'm being attacked! What the heck is this? I told you pollution would be a problem. Oops, debug mode. Oh god. Oh god, I keep pressing the wrong button, sorry. So that stops these from having gaps without having to need a massive 10 to 8 balancer or a 12 to 8 balancer or something. So then the matter is a fluid, so that goes into a train, simple circuit condition. Because this is relatively slow, you don't need 1 train per station. This will make 21,000. I'm being attacked by biters. 21,000 matter per minute, so this will fill up a train in about 4 minutes. Give or take. Let's just say, let's say 5 minutes. So you just have 1 train going around. Because obviously your fluid load times are exceedingly short. You can have a lot of these kinds of stations only served by a handful of trains. And then you turn that matter into matter cubes. And matter cubes are even better, they're even more compressed in terms of resources. So I'm going to make these biters disappear quantumly by just deleting their save that they exist in. And we'll look at matter cubes. So you build a simple station, put a train in it, tell the train to go to whichever matter station has enough matter, and unload it into a tank. I haven't put a circuit condition on this yet, and just to show you how quickly this fluid's unload if you're not aware. There you go, done. That was 100,000 matter, which is the equivalent of... oh god, mental maths. What did I say? 100,000 matter. 500,000 matter would be 1 million iron ore, so a fifth of that. 200,000 iron ore just got unloaded there into this. You pump that fluid into a matter assembler, you put a charged matter stabilizer in, you get a matter cube out. The matter cube is where the textures, and Krastorio as well in fact, is where a lot of the textures from the Ultra Cube mod comes from, fact fans. You get a matter cube out and you get a discharged matter stabilizer back 99% of the time. You run those discharged matter stabilizers through a charging facility. You put those back on the belt, you sideload that belt to fill in the gaps, and then you bring in fresh matter stabilizers from a train to fill in the 1% of gaps that you now have, because this only gives you a matter stabilizer back 1% of the time. So 1,000 matter goes into a cube. What did we just establish that was? 10 iron ore. 5 iron ore. Oh, I'm so bad. 5 matter is 10 iron ore. So 500 matter would be 10,000 iron ore. So 1000 matter would be 20,000 iron ore. So there's 20,000 iron ore in one of these cubes. And they stack to 200. So you can get a lot of matter in a train. A lot of matter in a train. An obscene amount, in fact. This build looks weird just because obviously there's room for scaling across. Currently this train doesn't have enough, there's not enough matter in the world, but I've only built just this one station here just to test the system, test how I want to do it. But you can quickly see how this gets out of hand. So instead of having this doing ore, you have this doing matter instead of, you know, and then it just becomes a simple case of you don't even need to differentiate between things anymore. You just mine stuff, turn it into matter, bring it back. Now some people don't like this. Some people choose not to use it, and that's fine. I can see why it would become a bit boring, a bit samey when all your mining outposts just turn things into matter. Or sorry, I'm drinking tea right in the middle of talking. Well, a really good episode. This is a really good episode. It of course uses an obscene amount of energy as well. But if we're going to scale up to Megabase territory, you kind of have to do it like this. It's very difficult to not do it like this. The sheer number of entities you would need, the sheer amount of ore moving around the base that you would need, is frankly absurd. So let's now turn this matter into something, and we can see exactly how efficient that process becomes. So plastic is a good place to start. Your Megabase plastic needs are bottlenecked by your petroleum throughput. As we established before, we've got 3 grid sections here making petroleum, and the old plastic build, even this one, was using 226,000 petroleum a minute, which was more than 2 trains having to be unloaded here every minute. Plastic is one of the things you can turn matter into. It's one of the tier 2 recipes, so it requires a charge matter stabilizer to turn it into the product, in the same way that you need the charge matter stabilizer to turn it into the cube. There are some things that you can just get for free with the matter, and then there are some tier 2 things. Well, I like to call them tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 are like raw resources, tier 2 are things that raw resources can turn directly into. So you can turn matter into stone without needing a charge matter stabilizer, and you would be able to turn that stone into glass. So you can turn the matter into glass, but you need a charge matter stabilizer to do so. Thankfully, plastic is one of those things. So by using another charge matter stabilizer loop here, this one's slightly different for some reason. Can't remember why this one needs to be different. We use a lot more charge matter stabilizers to do this than to do for cubes. Obviously the cube production is quite slow relative to this. Let's bring a train in, shall we? Destination full. Here it comes. So you basically do the reverse. You turn the cube... Oh, there were cubes in here already. There you go. You turn the cubes into... back into matter, which doesn't need a matter stabilizer to do. And you get some plastic out of it. And by some plastic, I mean a lot of plastic. The matter stabilizers come out, they need charging. Oh, I guess this is different because it doesn't need to loop. Does the other one need to loop? Did this ever... Not that one. Not that one, this one. Did this ever need to loop around? I guess it does need to loop around because you've got to get the charge matter stabilizers back to... I guess it doesn't really make any difference. You can do it both ways. You can either have it loop or you can just have it stop, which begs the question why this is here like this. This needs a lot more, as I say, this needs a lot more stabilizer charging stations, because you're using a lot more charge matter stabilizers to do this process back. But then this requires 28,000 matter per minute, but gets you, not inserters, sorry, exactly 8 belts of plastic. Look at that. I've configured it to be exactly 8 belts of plastic. Fancy that. 8 belts of plastic in pure petroleum would be quite a lot. This build, as we just said, that was taking more than 2 1-4 trains every minute, still only making 6 purple belts. Whereas this is making 8 purple belts of plastic, and will go through 36 cubes per minute, which I don't need to... Oh, sorry, the wind is blowing through the window. I hope that's not blowing right into the microphone. Sorry. It's a lovely cool day here for after a week of pretty muggy, horrible weather. I don't like the heat. Sorry, a small tangent here. I don't like the heat. I'm a cold guy. I like to be cold. Don't like to be hot, ever. Hate it. Yes, hardly any of a wagon of matter cubes. About 4 hours it would take for a train wagon to be depleted. And then again the same with the matter stabilizers. You're using 4,320 per minute, but you're getting 99% of those back. So the difference between those two numbers is about 50, 45, 50 on average. So let's just say 50. And then these stack to 200. No, these stack to 100. Yeah, these stack to 100. But you can still see that that would not require very many trains. At all. So matter is the way forward, clearly. And then low density structures is the very first thing on my list. Rather than making it the last thing on my list, it's got to be the first thing on my list, because I was looking at the numbers and I was looking at ways to turn matter into the things that we need. And if you put 5,000 science cards per minute into your preferred Factorio calculator, you'll get some pretty shocking numbers. Some pretty shocking numbers. 60 purple belts of copper. 60 purple belts of copper. 44, almost 45 purple belts of plastic. But then when you look at how much of that on its own just has to go to low density structures, it suddenly doesn't make any sense to ship things around via a train, and it just makes more sense to make the things that you need to make the low density structures all in one place. The recipe for in Krastorio is no, it's different. 10 copper, 2 steel, 5 plastic bars over 20 seconds. So the recipe just for those things is 56 belts of copper. So 56 of the 60 belts of copper that you need just have to go to low density structures. 28 belts of the, what did I say, 40? 45. 2/3 of the plastic has to go to low density structures, and 11 belts of steel, which is basically all of the steel. Yeah, basically all of the steel has to go to low density structures. So moving stuff around via train just to make the low density structures doesn't make any sense, in my opinion. So we have to do what I believe is referred to as a black box build, where you just put the matter in and you get the low density structures out. And yeah, that's about as difficult as it sounds, i.e. very. But the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we have enough power to do that. If we look at the power consumption, you can see the precise moment I turned the plastic on. Probably, somewhere. Yeah, it was about here. It was about 2 hours ago. I turned plastic on, and so each spike of this is another matter plant. build going up. So there's another one. There's one here. There's one here. Just the two? I thought I built 3. Oh yeah, no, there's another one here. So each one of those spikes in the power network is a matter plant going up. And then these matter assemblers are the things turning the matter back into the item. So we're going to need to bulk out power. We can start designing a grid section that is just power now. You take the matter, we've talked about this before when we did the singularity beacon. Thankfully these always give you the antimatter fuel cell back. There's not a 99% chance like the matter stabilizer, so you always get these back. So then these just go in a loop around. This is a filter inserter that takes a charged matter stabilizer, sorry, a charged fuel cell. If this chest is empty, it just picks one up. So there's always one primed in the chest ready to go, and then it doesn't put a new one in until this inserter takes the old one out. So this way you don't have this full of 50 fuel cells. You don't have the belt needing to be completely filled with fuel cells. I was using yellow belts to try and be cute. I later find out that this doesn't work. It's not good. Just make it purple belts. Stop trying to be cute. And also I put a power switch down here because at one point I thought that this was using the fuel cell in the same way that the nuclear power plant does. You just put one in and it takes 36 seconds to use a fuel cell and then spits one out. So I put a power switch down here because I thought I would need to isolate these networks, but again that is also irrelevant. These use the fuel cells at exactly the rate required by the demands of your electric network, so you don't need to over-design this too much. And then this matter assembler here is scaled to produce at exactly the rate of fuel cells should all of these antimatter reactors be working at full tilt. And then there, of course, is space here to just double this up later. So that should be power solved. If we ever find out that we're running out of power, we just copy and paste this whole module into another grid section, and that's it, job done. Each one of these is 30... It's 3 gigawatts, sorry, so this is 20, this is 60 gigawatts, so each one of these grid sections could be 120 gigawatts, which sounds like a lot now. Sounds like a lot now. Research just finished. We're plowing through some stuff. The Spidertrons are still going out and about trying to solve these issues with my radar system not exactly lining up. It's mostly fine. The pollution is creeping out ever so slowly again. I also did a little bit of work on the science unloading. I was sick of these chests having 10,000 science in, and then the science chests also having far too much science in. So I've limited these chests to 8,000, which sounds like a lot, but of course that's only 8 minutes of science. And I've limited these chests to only fill when they are 2 minutes away from being empty. This balanced out how much science there is in the base, so there is now no longer a backlog of any science. If a science was overproducing, it just stopped producing for a bit until it leveled out with everything else, which I realise is totally irrelevant. But my main concern is that if I wanted to tear down a module at some point, I didn't want there to be 20,000 cards in here that I had to find something to do with. I thought 8 minutes would be enough. We could just tear this down, 8 minutes later we'll have used all the cards, problem solved. Also, there was a traffic jam, and this whole time, and I'm putting this on you, viewers, This whole time, these are wrong. These were wrong. Why on earth are these rail signals and not chain signals? Chain signals all the way up to the last rail signal. Like, there was a traffic jam because a train was stopped here, because it can stop here, because this is just a normal rail signal and not a chain signal. Around the entire base. It's frankly a miracle that it didn't break before 120 hours, and I don't understand exactly how this has happened. How this is sort of bumbling along. What is this doing here? How this system is sort of bumbling along. But yeah, of course, I had to change all of the inside signals to be chain signals. Had to... can you upgrade planner them? Just realised maybe I've done this in a slightly stupid way. You can upgrade planner them. 1 million. 1 million. Why can't I say the word million today? 1 million Singularity Tech cards at 22 hours 30 minutes. Yeah, so that's embarrassing. That was very embarrassing. I believe the traffic jam was here, which is why this one is fixed. But I haven't fixed all of the rest yet. Okay, so power is sorted, in theory. Let's start looking at low density structures, shall we? Christ alive. So I was playing around in the calculator, and obviously the goal is to just bring matter cubes in and have low density structures come out, which shouldn't be too bad, because you can turn matter cubes into copper directly. You can turn matter cubes into plastic with some charge matter stabilizers, so we'll need to bring those in as well. You can turn matter into wood and coal to make coke, and then matter into iron to make iron plates, and then turn coke and iron plates to make steel. So it is doable. So I had to play around with some designs for the copper system. And I want to enrich the copper as well, which adds its own level of headache, which also means I need to think about sulfuric acid, but not in volumes that mean that I can't just bring it in via train, hopefully. Hopefully. So I spent a long time playing around with stuff. Working out what was viable, what was not viable. Is it viable to just have filtration plants, one filtration plant doing all of the cleaning the water? Is it better to have closed loops like this? How much copper can I realistically make without it becoming a nightmare? Is this big enough to mean that I don't need 50 of them to do all the low density structures that I need? So the plan was this is low density structures. It's basically the same as the build that we have anyway, just with more speed beacons around it. So it uses belt weaving. One row of this takes just over one belt of copper, which is what this fiasco is up here. One belt goes up the top and comes to here. The other belt... Sorry, one belt goes in here and goes up to the first 1.5. The other belt does the top 1.5. And then the plastic is on the green belt, the steel will be on the blue belt, and then the outputs will come out. This is half of the design. So each module will be this, will be twice as wide as this. So this whole thing will need 15 belts of copper. So I thought, right, I'll design a copper module that can make about 15, 16 belts of copper. And that's this. If we do it per second, we can see that things are pretty well scaled here, even within individual rows. So this takes in 100 matter, turns it into just over 2 belts of copper ore. Sorry, there we go. Yeah, just over 2 belts of copper ore. That copper ore is then enriched to be just under 2 purple belts of enriched ore, and then this takes in just about that much enriched copper ore to output 2.7 belts of copper. And then this will do 24, so this is 24 furnaces, so I'll put that onto 24 belts, and then of course this is 6 wide. Each one is 2 belts, doubled is 24 belts, so then I can just feed these 1-to-1 into that low density structure build. Shouldn't need a massive 24-to-24 balancer or anything outrageous like that. Some interesting things that came out of this. You need enough water in the system to make sure the throughput is okay, but you can't have too much water because the water needs to also have space to move around. So I'm going to feed in a bit of water to start with. I'm still not 100% sure that I won't run into problems 50, 100 hours down the line when floating point rounding errors eventually make there not be enough water, but I mean that doesn't need to run for infinite amount of time, does it? More than enough space on a blue belt for the copper and the stone to go back through the system. The stone goes into the matter plant and just refeeds the matter back in. This pump here just ensures that this matter is prioritized into the system, because obviously I've run into the problem before testing when this pump wasn't here. This was like this instead, and this was full of matter, so then this couldn't output the matter, so the stone backed up, which meant the copper backed up, which meant this backed up, which meant everything stopped. And then yeah, some belt weaving, some inserters. It works, mostly. I guess you want to see it work. I suppose I should get you to see it working, shouldn't I? Let's get the editor out just so I can show you it working. How do I do this quickly and efficiently? Infinity chest. Here. Infinity pipe. Sulfuric acid. Water. Turn the editor off. You are sulfuric acid. You are water. You are matter cubes. Go. You are not working because these don't have things. And let's assume that's enough water. It works. I could put infinity chests on the bottom here to hoover up all of this. It definitely works. It definitely works. I mean, it doesn't definitely work. I know for a fact that it doesn't definitely work. At this point in my life, I thought it worked. So then I moved on to steel. I don't need to do plastic, of course, because what I explained before about doubling this up will be 8 purple belts of plastic. So plastic is actually already done. Steel. Steel is much the same, except you obviously need to make the coke as the interim step. Thankfully, wood and coal are cheap in terms of the amount of matter you need to make them, and thankfully the demand for them is also quite low. So rather than having a coal, wood, coke in line with the whole thing, to make the amount of steel that you need to fulfill what we've already talked about, you only need this much coke and this much steel. So again, same system, matter into enriched iron ore, clean the water, bring some sulfuric acid in, iron plates, coke, iron, steel, out. This will make 8 belts of steel-ish. So we will need to balance that into the low density structures, but that's okay. And the amount of time it took me to do all of this, this stone plant actually ran out. So I very quickly just ran a red belt up from this up from this stone mining station, and just plugged it back in. That caused a bit of a delay because I was suddenly running out of beacons, because I was running out of red circuits, because I'd run out of electronic components, because I'd run out of glass. But hopefully this explains why I've been letting the module plant go forever, even though I was like, I have 10,000 modules, can't you stop, dude, stop doing this, why you like this, etc, etc. Oh, I built myself another Spidertron, I have yet to find a good use for it. I fixed all the radars to make sure that the overlaps were correct, but pollution is still expanding outside of the realms of what we can see. Of course, anti-biter virus capsules are still being produced at will, so it's not a huge problem, but every now and then we do suddenly randomly get attacked, so there are a few stations of laser turrets down just as the biters come up from the south. Okay, so now we have the unenviable task of cutting and pasting this copper build and somehow gluing it together with this iron build, this steel build rather, and this plastic build into this low density structure build. And obviously this isn't going to go in a grid section. I mean, I could have explained that, I thought it was obvious. Going to need 4 of what we've designed here in various places around the map. So let's have a look at that, shall we? Hello. I have done it. I'm going to slowly zoom out. You can look at the minimap if you are bored. Thanks, autosave. We are currently here on the world map. And this was my first attempt at gluing this all together. So there's a station here to bring in cubes, there's a 2 stations here to bring in cubes and matter stabilizers for the plastic. There's a station... There will be a station here. I eventually realised that this is obviously far too much space and bring this all down a bit. There'll be a station here for another set of matter cubes for the iron, and then there'll be a station here for the sulfuric acid, and space here for sulfuric matter to sulfuric acid if I decide that that is something I want to try. I won't turn this on, because I'll save you the details. It doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is something so silly that I was very frustrated at, because I thought I tested everything so well. What I'd never tested, actually, was that this low density structure build works properly, and it doesn't, which is extremely frustrating. Even though rate calculator says that this doesn't even need 1 inserter of copper, 2 inserters of copper still is not enough to keep up. And obviously there's your disclaimer here. It's based on estimates, do some testing, don't be an idiot like me, make sure it actually works before you assume it works, because it's probably not going to work. Even 2 inserters aren't enough. Thankfully it was a fairly simple fix. I lowered the speed, and also in removing speed beacons I was able to make this a loader instead. That obviously meant that I needed more assemblers, so I fudged the numbers slightly and just managed to put an extra row up here, which meant I had to move the copper, the steel around. This space ended up being a bit narrower, so I had to do a weird thing with the balancer. So it's still the same number of low density structures. If anything, it's slightly more low density structures. It's just over a bigger space. It's the same number, but over a bigger space, because we need inserters instead. It also meant I was able to get rid of this. I'll just show you. I don't know what I'm talking about. Alright, this is the final version. This is the version that definitely works. As I say, don't need a belt balancer for the copper. 8 purple belts of plastic into 12 green belts of plastic. The steel has to be balanced like this, and yeah, so the copper, instead of going around the top and coming down, because it's split over 3 assemblers, it's now split over 4 assemblers. So one belt just is loaded into this machine, the other belt is loaded into this machine. And instead of coming out at the top, now it comes out along the side, which is expensive in terms of undergrounds, but I'm well beyond the point of caring about the price of purple belts now. Like, this whole build is 5,000 purple belts, 300 undergrounds, 222 loaders, 3,300 speed modules, 412 productivity modules, just to show you the ratio of speed to productivity that we're eventually going to have in the base. The sulfuric acid comes in via a train. As I say, I might change that, I might not. Oh, hello. So this works. This makes more low density structures just here than the entire rest of the base was for 1,000 science per minute. We will still need 4 of these for 5,400 science per minute. Oh, one other small thing. These inserters weren't inserting enough coke into the machine. This should not be running out of coke on the edge there. What is happening? Why does this only have 1? They should all have 2. It's fine. It works. Let's get this out. This definitely is correct, right? Yeah. I mean, just plus 1 extra coke per second. So I'm assuming it just needs to permeate down the line. Please don't be broken now. Oh, Christ. It's fine. It's fine. It works. I think it's because it overproduces steel, so eventually it does back up. Or is there a problem with my mashed together belt balancer? We'll see. We'll see. The point is all of these machines are green all of the time. This is of course bottleneck light mod, which just shows you at a glance if all your machines are fine, and these are all fine. So the fact that there's a red light here is not a problem. There's some red lights and stuff going on here because these things, you know, everything's just scaled to such weird numbers, precise numbers. You know, this copper is 1,476 per second, and this is 1,368 per second. So, you know, there's some small margins of error here. This takes an obscene amount of power, an actual obscene amount of power to run at full tilt, so I did have to double up the power supply and, yeah, change these to purple belts and stop faffing around with it. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention with these is they need priming, of course. You need to put 1 fuel cell in before, because this will only insert a fresh one when this takes the empty one out. So this will do nothing unless you prime it with a fuel cell, but that's fine, you can manage that. Yeah, so then if we go into this, low density structures, over the course 14,000, which is the 3,000 the base makes anyway, and the 11,000 from this. 11,400. So, this took me a long time, because one, I'm not a smart man, as you've probably worked out by now. And 2, the bloody pollution cloud wouldn't flip and give it a rest, would it? So I spent a lot of time playing with getting distracted by playing with artillery and laser turrets and stuff like that. Let me show you a small thing that I do. This is a long episode, I know, but this is complicated stuff. Complicated stuff, guys. Yeah, I kept getting distracted by playing with biter killing methods, despite knowing full well that just lobbing anti-biter virus capsules every now and then is the best way to deal with it. I thought, oh, I can put antimatter reactor in the Spidertron, along with a planetary teleporter. You can get planetary teleporters, by the way, by building GPS satellites, which are very easy to make by hand. 4 AI cores, a rocket control unit, and a satellite. And launching that in a rocket, and then you get the ingredient, the weird ingredient that you need. You need one teleportation GPS module, and then you just plop these down on the surface, and they need a bit of charging, but you can teleport to them. The other benefit of the antimatter reactors is that because they're 3 gigawatts, you can make quite a lot of power in remote outposts like this. So, after researching a few levels of artillery shell range, even the automatic range of these artillery shells is all of this, and then I just put them in the range of the laser artillery and brought some artillery shells over, and this was fun. They're taking forever to target the first thing because there's so much for it to think about. This one decided to go the other way around. I also put some pollution filters down inside the base just to sort of help. So this works, this is fun, but it absolutely eats through shells. Like, it completely just eats through shells. So even though it's cool to look at, all the shells that I've brought with me won't even clear half the biters in this range, which is very frustrating. I also built the very final tier of antimatter rockets, so heavy rockets, atomic bombs, antimatter rockets. Let's go and commit a war crime or two, just casually. Ah, biters! Ah, biters! This causes lag, do not adjust your picture. Fire in the hole! Yeah, I've been more impressed in my life, I have to say. Yeah. So we're out of artillery shells, and thankfully, the laser turrets do a good job of protecting the artillery shells. So, this does work, but you just need to automate bringing the shells up here, and because they eat so many shells, there just really isn't a good way to deal with it. The best way to deal with it is probably just having an army of Spidertrons with laser turrets in, but because personal armor laser turrets are nowhere near as good in Krastorio as they are in vanilla, even that doesn't really appeal to me. So basically we're just back to the old method of revealing terrain with the Spidertrons and then throwing biter capsules down, anti-biter virus capsules down when things start getting out of hand. That really is the only viable way that isn't a lot of micromanagement. Even if this is kind of cool. Like, I did look at maybe putting like pylons in the Spidertron and just running pylons around and doing this, but whoops, the range of these is fine. But again, it was just a lot of micromanagement for something that is just so easily solved by going, oh, yeah, just throw a few biter capsules down, go down to 20 frames per second for a bit, and just kill more biters remotely in the base than the last 10 minutes of doing that put together. Although a lot of that is trees, to be fair. You see what I mean? You see what I'm saying? Okay. So let's leave you with one final... Oh, this is when it's turned off. This save file is slightly before me turning this on. I just changed things around for the sake of brevity. Okay, so that's low density structures. Thankfully, this is the old build. Let me quickly go back to the current save file and I'll do me old outro stuff. The coke furnace was outputting more than one purple belt of coke. What a silly mistake. Thankfully it's a simple case of just feeding the second line out and then merging it through halfway. Easy fix. Thank you so much for watching. I really do feel like that now we've got this horrendous thing out of the way, we should be able to carry that momentum through. Nothing needs quite as much work as this. As I say, we only need 4 purple belts of copper to feed the entire rest of the base outside of low density structures. We barely need any steel for the rest of the base. You know, there will be some more big builds, of course there will be, but like low density structures is crazy. I'm not envisioning a world where we need to put anything else outside of the Megabase grid system. Now that if we're going to use plastic, if we're going to make most of our plastic like this, we don't need that much petroleum, and so on and so forth. So we should be able to make quite good progress now, hopefully. Don't forget we already did satellites for 5,000 science per minute as well, 5,400. So yeah, so a long episode I know, but this really is quite an inflection point. I feel like this build is crazy. It should be all downhill from here, hopefully. So I'm becoming more and more positive that we're actually going to get this done before 2.0 comes out. Which, to be honest, I was never worried about. I mean, that's flipping October. It's ages away. He says, as we near the end of July. No. Alright, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please let me know with a like or a comment. And if you want to see more of the Krastorio Megabase, be sure to subscribe. Please don't pay attention to the fact that all of my inner sight crystals are running out. That is definitely the next thing that we're going to look at. Definitely. Other than that, take care, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.